हरे हरे।
उसको ऑन करो।
हरे कृष्णा। Possible to mute. So we'll continue the chapter on Bhishma Dev. So yesterday we discussed the verse 12th verse, Bhishma Dev speaking to the Pandavas. Aho kashtam aho nyayam yadyuyam dharma nandana jeevitam nargata klishtam vipradharma achyutashrayah. Having the shelter of the Brahmanas, Dharma and Krishna, you should not live your life in suffering because that is dangerous and improper. So, Balabhadra Kripa bro, you can unmute, mute bro. Is it possible? So, in the 6th canto of the Bhagavatam, when the Indra and the demigod, Indra actually disrespected Brihaspati by not getting up when Brihaspati entered the assembly. After that, because of their offense towards Brihaspati, the demons actually attacked the Devatas, and then the Devatas lost their position. Demons overpowered the Devatas. So then, when the Devatas, they approach Brahmaji for a solution, how they can actually regain their position, how they can regain their service. So at that time, Brahmaji says that Tripishtapam kim ganayantyabedya mantra bhrugunam anushikshitartha na vipra govinda gavishwaranam bhavantyabhadrani nareshwaranam. So Brahmaji says, intent on following the instructions of Shukracharya and having unbreakable counsel, the demons do not care at all for the Devatas. Brahmaji says that the demons are having a counsel or advice from Shukracharya, and they are very faithful to following the instruction of Shukracharya, and they have a great they have a great advisor in the form of Shukracharya. Therefore, the demons are so powerful, the demons do not care at all for the Devatas. But still, then, so when Brahmaji says like that, so then like Devatas feel that means like there is no way by which we can regain our regain our position. If the demons are so powerful because of following the instruction of Shukracharya, if they have such a great unbreakable counsel, then like do we have any hope of regaining our position? Then Brahma actually comforts the Devatas by saying, Na vipra govinda gavishwaranam bhavanti abhadrani nareshwaranam. Those people who are merciful to the Brahmanas, cows, and Govinda, they have no misfortunes. Because you are merciful to the Brahmanas, cows, and Govinda, don't worry, that definitely you will be victorious. You have to be patient. So, na vipra Govinda gavishwarana bhavanti abhadrani nareshwarana. Bhavanti abhadrana. There will not be any misfortune for those who respect the Brahmanas, cows, and Govinda. And the Pandavas had all three qualities. That is what Bhishma Devi is saying, that Vipra Dharma Achyutashraya. having the shelter of the Brahmanas, Dharma, and Krishna, you should not, your life should not be filled with so many difficulties. Having difficulties in your life is actually improper. In that way, Bhishma begins. And how does he proceed? Let us see that. So Prabhupada says in the purport, Bhishma understood that Yudhishthira was disturbed due to the great massacre in Kurukshetra, and so he first spoke of the terrible sufferings of Yudhishthira. So therefore, the point is that do not regret the great massacre, that you are always protected by the Brahmanas. You just cooperate with the wishes of the Lord and strictly follow the religious principles. So Prabhupada explains that how to overcome despondency in trying circumstances. The solution is that cooperate with the wishes of the Lord, and with the words being guided by the Vaishnavas and the Brahmanas, and strictly follow the religious principles. Yeah, going ahead. Samstite tirate pandau pratap balaprajav vaduhu yushmat krite bahun kleshan praptatokavati muhuhu. So Bhishmadev says that when the great warrior Pandu died, his wife Kunti with the young children constantly underwent many difficulties. Muhuhu means constantly. In Pandu Maharaj died, Kunti underwent so many difficulties in raising you because you are all young at that time. So being alone with young children and without a husband, it causes much suffering. But although you are now grown up, but still she underwent great suffering with you as a young child. And we discussed the sufferings of Kunti like in yesterday's class, last few classes. So the sufferings of Kunti are actually doubly lamented because she suffered greatly because of early widowhood and also to get her minor children brought up in the royal family. Yeah, next verse. So next two verses, Bhishmadev speaks about the power of time. Sarvam kalakritam manye bhavatam cha yadapriyam sapalo yadvashe loko vayoriva ganavalihi. Sarvam kalakritam manye. Manye means I consider that whatever sufferings which you have undergone, which you underwent, all this has been done to you by the time factor. Sarvam kala kritam. All this suffering which has happened in your life is because of the time factor. And what is the nature of time factor? Sa palo yad vashe loko. The time controls the world, and time controls all the lokas along with its protectors. Sa palo represents the lokapala. Not only controls the lokas, but also controls the lokapalas. Vayo riva ganavalihi, just as the wind controls the clouds. So one may wonder, like, I'm not able to see some personality called as time who is trying to control people. Like in this world, when you see in suppose an organization or something, you are able to visibly see a manager or a president who is telling people to do something. Then you come to understand, okay, this person is in charge of this. But we are not able to see the time factor. But although you may not be able to see the time factor, but you can see the effect of the time factor. You may not be able to see the wind, but you can see the presence of the wind by how the clouds are displaced by the wind. So similarly, that when we see the like destruction which happens in this world, how the people, even the big people, are humbled. By seeing those effects, we can infer the cause, and that cause is the time factor. So Pandavas are asking, what is the cause of our suffering? It cannot be said that because of some old karmas or because of some recent karmas we are suffering. Or like, what is the cause of the Pandava suffering? Is it because of certain karmic reactions? Like it is because of certain old karmas or the recent karmas they are suffering? So one may have this question. Bhishma is actually thinking, having that in mind, is speaking this verse. So Bhishma says that time is actually simply the substratum of the experience of happiness and distress, which are the prarabdha karmas. So say, like, every person has a certain like karmic reactions which is supposed to undergo, like that is there in every person's quota, and that what the time does, the time simply acts as an assistant. Time simply acts as an assistant to make that person experience his quota of karma. It is not that time actually gives the suffering. Time actually makes a person experience his own quota of suffering, his own quota of karma. Time assists the material nature so that the living entity can actually experience his past karma. So then, in that sense, like one's own karma is actually the cause of one's suffering. We cannot blame the time. The time is the cause of one's suffering. One's own karma is the cause of the suffering. But in the case of Yudhishthira Maharaj, how can we say that that Yudhishthira's own karma was the cause of his suffering? Yeah, it is definitely true in the case of every living entity that one's own karma is the cause of the suffering, and the time acts as an assistant so that the living entity can experience the quota of his karma. But in the case of Yudhishthira Maharaj, who is the personification of dharma, and the Pandavas, how can these Pandavas have like, how can they have any prarabdha karma? If dharma personified Yudhishthira Maharaj, if he was still having certain prarabdha karma, then how can you say that, like, generally, why a person undergoes suffering? Because a person has deviated from the path of dharma. And why does a person deviate from the path of dharma? When a person does not have the proper sense of dharma, then he does not follow dharma, then he deviates from the path of dharma, then he undergoes the reaction. But in the case of Yudhishthira Maharaj, he is the personification of dharma. I think somebody has unmuted or something, some background coming. So in the case of Yudhishthira Maharaj, he is the personification of dharma. So then how, like, he can never lack, he can never actually go wrong in the practice of dharma. He can never commit a mistake in the execution of dharma. So that means he can never have any prarabdha karmas in his store. He can never have the prarabdha karmas in his quota because he always practiced the dharma. So therefore, like, yeah, we understand that for every living entity, like one's own prarabdha karma is the cause of one's suffering, and time simply acts as an assistant. Yeah, this is true for every living entity, but how can this be true for the Pandavas? Where the Pandavas, headed by Yudhishthira Maharaj, who is the personification of dharma, they never actually lacked the sense of dharma and they never committed a mistake. Then how can they actually, how can we say that their prarabdha karmas, because of their prarabdha karmas, the Pandavas actually underwent suffering. So therefore, in the case of the Pandavas, the prarabdha karmas are not the cause of the suffering of the Pandavas because they had no prarabdha karmas. Prarabdha karma means manifest karmic reactions or the karmic quota. In the case of the Pandavas, their karma is not the cause of suffering because they had no karma. In the case of the Pandavas, time is the cause of suffering. Sarvam kala kritam manye. All this has been done to you by the time factor, which cannot be countered and which cannot be explained. It is difficult to give an explanation for this time factor and it cannot be countered also. So Prabhupada writes in the purport, these purports are actually, you must go through these purports very carefully. I remember in 2012, May, just last week, last, I think Thursday or something, last Thursday was that anniversary of the devotees who died in the Nepal plane crash in the year 2012, 8 years back. So when that devotees died who are connected to the Radha Gopinath temple, they died in the plane crash. So at that time, His Holiness Radhanath Maharaj came from the US and then he gave certain classes. He gave some 2-3 classes. And at least 2 or 3 classes are based on these verses. He gave classes on these verses. Sarvam Kala Kritam Manye, these verses actually. So you may hear those classes also. Because generally when a pious person undergoes suffering, especially the personalities like Pandavas, like we are still sadhaka bhaktas, we may still have certain our karma in store. But this is, of course, these verses are spoken by the Bhishma Dev's point of view. But in the case of, from a devotee's point of view, even if he is a pure devotee, associate of the Lord, he will think that, oh, I am suffering because of my karma. Because a devotee does not consider himself to be like an associate of the Lord. A devotee will consider I am suffering because of my karma. But Bhishma Dev is giving an explanation. He says that like, you cannot be suffering because of your past karma, because like you, Yudhishthir, is the personification of dharma. How can you ever lose sense of dharma? So therefore, whatever suffering you underwent, it was simply done to you by the time factor, which cannot be countered and which cannot be explained. So Prabhupada says here, Bhishma Dev says, the Kala is a forceful representative of the Lord within the material world, and it controls even our other, it controls even air and other elements. Bhishma Dev says, Yudhishthir should not think that he had committed sins in his previous birth and is suffering the consequence. Because even the most pious have to suffer the condition of material nature. So a few days back also there was a question that we say devotional services, Susukam Kartup Mavyayam, it is joyfully performed, why the devotees undergo suffering. You see, this principle you have to clearly understand. Both the laws of the material world and the principles of devotional service, both will act simultaneously. And we will see in the Bhishma Dev's things also. Like in the case of Bhishma Dev, that Bhishma Dev chose to fight on the side of the Kauravas, on the side of Adharma, although he was a Mahajan. So we will see Krishna punished Bhishma Dev for the mistakes he committed. We will discuss the conversation between Krishna and Bhishma from Bhishma Parva also. So for choosing to fight against Dharma, he was punished. And for being a faithful devotee of Krishna, Krishna also rewarded. So when you go against dharma, that means when you go against the system of Krishna, then you will be punished for that. So that's the law of the material world. And when you remain faithful to Krishna as a devotee, and Krishna will also reward you. So both these laws will act simultaneously. We cannot expect that in the name of devotional service, like we can commit any sin and then we can actually will not get any reaction for that. Like for example, Bharat Maharaj, he remembered the deer at the time of death. So according to the law of this world, yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tiyat yante kalevaram tam tam yeveti kaunteya sada tadbhava bhavitah. Whatever you remember at the time of death, you will get that kind of a body. It is a general law of this world. So according to that law operated and he became a deer in the next life. But at the same time, the law of devotional service is that neha bikrama nashosti pratyavayona vidyate swalpam apyasi dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. If a person performs even a slight devotional service, one will be saved from the greatest danger. So therefore this law also acted because Bharat Maharaj had performed so much of devotional service. Therefore Krishna rewarded Bharat Maharaj by giving him a remembrance of the past life even when he became a deer. So therefore we see both these laws act. So here I don't know why I mentioned that in the sense that devotional service is susukam. Devotional service in one sense, it is a joyful process. It is not some exaggerated statement. It is simple for the simple. It's a joyful process. But at the same time, the nature of the material world is that material world is a place of duality. It is a place of suffering. So even when a devotee is in the material world, he will also experience the nature of the material world. That means there will be sufferings in the life of a devotee also. But it will be a joyful struggle because he's practicing bhakti. Struggle will be there because one is in the material world. The person is in the ocean. How can you say that he cannot become wet? So struggle will be there, but because of the practice of bhakti, the struggle will be a joyful struggle. In that sense, the joyful aspect comes from the practice of bhakti, susukam, and struggle comes because he is there in the material world. There is a place of misery. Therefore, both these laws will act. So Prabhupada says that even the most pious has to suffer the condition of material nature. But a pious man is faithful to the Lord, for he is guided by the bona fide Brahmanas and the Vaishnavas following religion. Even the great controller of the universe, Brahmaji, is also under the control of the time. Therefore, one should not grudge being thus controlled by time, despite being a true follower of religious principles. So even the Brahmaji is also under the control of time. In the third canto, I think, 10th chapter, in the calculation of time from the atom, right from the Paramanu atomic time to the Parar, the lifetime of Dviparar, the lifetime of Brahma, it is described. And finally it says that even this Brahma, the life of Brahma is just a one moment for Mahavishnu. So Brahma is also under the control of time. So that is why, even the Bhagavatam, it is said that Yatra Nirvish, the Rudra Gita, there's a verse which says that at the time of annihilation, the different Rudras, they actually perform the destruction of the universe. But one Rudra is afraid of another Rudra. Although the different Rudras are destroying this universe, but even among them, one Rudra is afraid of another Rudra. So therefore, that everybody is under the control of time. So when we talk about time, of course, time has got actually two aspects. One is the destruction aspect, another is the nourishing aspect. Like many times we only speak about the destruction aspect. Video is getting freezed. I don't know. I'm kept in 4G only today. Okay, I've kept in the Wi-Fi. Let us see if it is better. So time has got actually two aspects. One is the destruction aspect. Like in the Bhagavad Gita, we say that Kalakshaya, that I am the time, I'm the destroyer in the form of time. But you see, the another aspect of time is that time also planet, the different forms of the sun planet. There and then there it is explained that how the sun, the movement of the time is nothing but the movement of the time factor. The movement of the time is movement of the sun is called as the movement of the Kala Chakra. And then, but the sun by its movements, it actually nourishes this world. In that sense, the time has like both these aspects, the nourishing aspect as well as the destruction aspect. So, yeah, some more things about the time. Like another point, which is one of the ever fresh topic, ever favorite topic is the time management. Time management is something is a ever fresh topic. But when you talk about time management, when the materialists talk about time management, they see time from a utility point of view. They see time from a utility point of view because they see that, like even in the companies, the salary is calculated in terms of the number of hours a person has put in, number of hours a person has devoted for the particular project. So, like time is valued by the materialists in the form of the money. So how much time I spent for this particular project, therefore you should reward me more, like that. But so therefore, when they talk about time management, they see in terms of actually how to utilize the time better so that we can actually earn more. We can actually increase our gratification more, like that. But when a spiritualist sees time, he sees time not from a utility point of view, but from an intrinsic point of view. That means he sees time for what it is intrinsically. So when a spiritualist sees time, he sees that time is a non-different from Krishna. So therefore, when he thinks about time management, that means time management is nothing but the managing Krishna. But Krishna is the supreme manager of the entire universe. Then how can you manage Krishna? So therefore, for a spiritualist, time management means managing our lives in such a way that we act according to the will of the supreme manager Krishna. That is the essence of time management for a spiritualist. So time makes the unpalatable unavoidable. Unpalatable things are old age, disease, and death. Nobody wants these things, but time makes the unpalatable things unavoidable. We cannot avoid these things. But at the same time, in his original feature as Krishna, when a person does not take shelter of Krishna, he experiences Krishna in the form of the time factor. And for such a person, the unpalatable things becomes unavoidable. A materialist does not want old age, disease and death, but he has to face the time factor, and the old age, disease and death become unavoidable for him, and then he becomes miserable. But when a person takes shelter of Krishna, instead of when a person takes shelter of Krishna, and by the grace of Krishna, Krishna makes the unavoidable palatable. Even for a devotee, old age, disease and death, these are unavoidable things. But by taking shelter of Krishna, a devotee is not very much disturbed by old age or disease or death. So, like a devotee goes through it because of the, like yesterday in some WhatsApp group, somebody sent a message that in UK, I think a big number was mentioned, but it was mentioned that half the population of the UK, they underwent a course for preventing suicide. So we can see just that lockdown has actually created lockdown, social distancing, because people's sense gratification has stopped, and that means like the meaning in they're not able to find a further meaning in their life. Like there's so much of thoughts of suicide and depression they come, and half the population, they underwent a suicide prevention course. So like so therefore the point is, even when a person takes shelter of Krishna, even he has to undergo old age, disease and death. He is, when he is part of the society, a devotee also undergoes the different problems of the society. But Krishna makes the unavoidable palatable. And so time is nothing but Krishna's tough love. Krishna's tough love. That means when a living entity chooses to rebel against Krishna, then the same Krishna shows his love to the living entity in the form of the time factor, by causing destruction, by appearing in the form of the death in front of the living entity. And that is also Krishna's love towards the living entity, but it is a Krishna's tough love. It comes in the form of the time factor. And the time is actually, when we compare time with the wealth, Chanakya Pandit says that Ayusha Kshana Ekopi Nalabhya Swarna Kotibihi. Even one moment of life cannot be earned back, even if you give thousands of gold coins. In that sense, time is irrecoverable. Once you lose the time, you cannot actually recover it back. Like people might have lost a lot of money in the stock market. The market is crashing, it's not faring good. But money can be earned back. Money can be earned back. One may have lost the job or lost the salary, etc. But it can be earned back. Okay, there is a phase one has to undergo. It can be earned. But time, once it is lost, it cannot be earned back. And money can be stored and you can utilize it in the later time. Money can be stored in a, say, deposit or a security, this thing, and then you can utilize it later. But in the case of a time, it is unstorable. When you have the moment right now, this moment has to be utilized right now. You cannot store it in order to utilize it later. So therefore, yeah, these are some thoughts about time. I got some of these points from Chaitanya Charan Prabhu's article. Yeah, we'll go ahead. So 15th verse. Yatra dharma suto raja gadapanir vrkodaraha Krishnostri Gandivam Chapam Suhrit Krishnastato Vipat. So Bhishma is saying that you are lamenting where there is Yudhishthir, the son of Dharma, Dharma Sutta, and Gadapani, Bhima, the holder of the club, the Vrikodara, Bhima, who is the holder of the club, and Arjuna, the holder of the Gandiva bow, and your friend Krishna. So he's saying how wonderful is the influence of inevitable time. It is irreversible. Otherwise, how can there be reverses in the presence of Yudhishthir, Bhima, and Arjuna, and above all the Supreme Lord, the direct well-wisher of the Pandavas? So Bhishma Devi is saying that you had both the material resources and the spiritual resources. He's actually, Bhishma is directly speaking to Yudhishthir. He's saying that you had the best of material resources in the form of the Bhima and Arjuna because they had great power, and you also had the spiritual resources because you had Krishna was personally concerned with the affairs of the Pandavas. But despite this, sometimes a person may be spiritually advanced, but because of lack of material resources, one may be suffering. And sometimes a person may have lot of material resources, but because of lack of spiritual knowledge, they are suffering. Like we see that sometimes very rich people, they are also miserable. They may have the best of material resources, but because of lack of spiritual knowledge, they are suffering. And sometimes there may be devotees, but because of lack of material resources, they are suffering. But Bhishma Dev is saying that you had the best of the material resources, in the sense that, of course, Bhima and Arjuna, they were the best of the warriors, and the best of the spiritual resources were also there, because Yudhishthira, is the personification of Dharma, and Krishna was there personally with you. But still, yet there were so many resources. Or Vishwanath Chakravarti translates as that, but still you are lamenting. Why do you need to lament? Because you have the best of the various Bhima and Arjuna, and you have the Krishna, so therefore there is no need to lament. Please do not lament, like that he says. So Prabhupada says that despite the power of pious acts, the power of the personalities, the power of expert management, and the power of weapons, under the direct supervision of Krishna, the Pandavas suffered so many practical reverses, which can only be explained as due to the influence of Kala. So Kala is identical with the Lord, and therefore the influence of Kala indicates the inexplicable wish of the Lord. And there is nothing to be lamented when the matter is beyond the control of any human being. So especially when something is beyond your control, there is nothing to be lamented. When something which is within your control, and when you don't put your effort to the full capacity, then you have to increase your effort. But when something is beyond your control, then like if you actually put your endeavor to undo what is supposed to happen, then you will go through great frustration. And that was the point of Dhritarashtra. Dhritarashtra and Duryodhan, they were not destined to be the king. But Dhritarashtra and Duryodhan, they did not accept that destiny. They were putting their best effort to become the king and also to kill the Pandavas. So therefore, they were using their Purushartha to undo their destiny. Therefore, they were going through great misery. So here, Bhishma Dev is saying that there is no need to lament, because when the matter is beyond the control of any human being. And also there is no need to lament because Krishna is there on your side, Bhima and Arjuna are there on your side, therefore don't lament. So Prabhupada quotes, Vishwanath Chakravarti quotes in the purport from the Kapila Dev's teachings, Na karhichin matpara shanta rupe, nangshyanti nome nimisho ledi heti, yesham aham priya atma sutascha saka, guru suhrudo daivam ishtam. So Kapila Dev says that the devotees in the spiritual world are not deprived of any enjoyment. My wheel of time does not afflict the devotees. So essentially the main point of this Kapila Dev's verse is that the time does not afflict the devotees. And this point comes in several places in the Bhagavatam. Yatra nirvishta maranam kritanto nabi manyate vishvam vidvam shayam virya shaurya visfurjita bruva. Lord Shiva says that the time factor simply, Lord Shiva is glorifying the Lord, simply by the rising of your eyebrows you control the entire world, or you destroy the entire world. So time is nothing but the eyebrows of the Lord. Simply with your time factor, you destroy the entire world. But except the devotees who are engaged in serving you. Ayur harati vaipumsam udyanastam cha yennasau tasyarte yakshano nita uttama shloka vartaya. This is also another verse which gives the same meaning. That with the rising and setting of the sun, a person comes close to death. But except a person who spends time in hearing and chanting about Krishna. That means time controls everyone except the devotees. And this is repeatedly mentioned in the Shastra. So now, then how then could time attack the Pandavas? If the time controls everyone except the devotees, then how can we say, how can Bhishma Dev say that Sarvam Kala Kritam Manye, whatever reverses you are undergoing, it is because of the time factor. So already it was ruled out that Pandavas did not suffer because of their past karma, because the Pandavas, they never had a mistake in their sense of dharma. So in that sense, they never suffered because of the prarabdha karma. And then it was said that, okay, Pandavas suffered because of the time factor. But then here, now the next point is that even you can't say that because of the time factor the Pandavas were suffering, because the time controls everyone except the devotees. And the Pandavas were filled with dasya rasa and sakya and vatsalya mood with Krishna. So how can time attack the Pandavas? This is something astonishing. So that means without a cause, time has produced the effects. Without a cause, time has produced effects. And like whose cause we must infer, but which looks similar to karma. So without a cause, Pandavas did not have any karma, so therefore they cannot be suffering because of their karma. And time controls only the non-devotees. The Pandavas were the pure devotees of Krishna. So how can the time actually give suffering to the Pandavas? So of course, this will be answered in the next verse. So this is the 15th verse. Yeah, 16th verse. 16th verse is an important verse. Nahyasya karhi chitrajan puman veda viditsitam yad vijigyasaya yukta mukhyanti kavayopihi. So Bhishma Dev says here, O King Yudhishthir, no one can understand the plan of Krishna. Because even those who are engaged in reasoning and scripture, even those who are great philosophers, even they are bewildered by their inquiry to understand the plan of the Lord. Mukhyanti kavayopihi. So here Bhishma Dev is giving one conclusion. Okay, prarabdha karmas are not the cause of the suffering of the Pandavas. Even time cannot be the cause of the suffering of the Pandavas because time controls only the non-devotees. Then what should we conclude? What is the cause of the suffering of the Pandavas? So Bhishma Dev says here, actually it is a plan of Krishna. And it is the plan of Krishna, it is the desire of Krishna. It is the desire of Krishna. But one may, if you ask the question, why Krishna desired like that? Why Krishna planned that we have to undergo these sufferings in our life? So therefore Bhishma Dev says that Nahyasya Karikachit Rajan Puman Veda Vidisyatam, that nobody can understand the plan of Krishna. Everyone agrees that no one can interfere with the plans of Krishna, and no one can even understand the plans of Krishna. What to speak of interfering, nobody can even understand the plans of Krishna, and no person, even starting with Brahma and Shiva, knows the plan of Krishna, then what to speak of me? So then, but then one may, okay, then nobody knows the plans of Krishna, but if we make inquiry, to the right people, to the sages, or even to the Krishna, maybe we will understand the plan of Krishna. So does Krishna want to give us suffering? Or does Krishna want to give us joy in our life? Or does Krishna want to give us suffering and joy? What is the plan of Krishna? That does Krishna want to give us suffering or joy, or a mixture of suffering and joy? Then these are all actually the different thoughts of Yudhishthir are being mentioned by Vishnu Chakravarti in the purport. Then Yudhishthir thinks, no, it cannot be the first reason. It cannot be the first reason that does Krishna want to give us suffering. It cannot be the first reason, because the nature of Krishna is that he is Bhakta Vatsala. If Krishna had wanted to give us suffering, then it would contradict the Krishna's nature as Bhakta Vatsala. Therefore, it cannot be the first reason that Krishna wants to give us suffering. And it cannot be the second option that Krishna wants to give us joy, because in our life we have not seen any happiness. And it cannot be the third option also, that Krishna wants to give us a suffering and happiness, because that would also be a contradiction to his kind nature. If Krishna is by nature is kind, if a person is by nature kind, why would a person want to give both suffering and happiness to another person? So therefore, that it is finally decided that one cannot solve this problem by inquiry. One cannot understand why Krishna did like that simply by our inquiry. So therefore, this verse says that even those who use their intelligence, mukhyanti kavayopihi, even those who use their intelligence to discriminate, and those who use the knowledge of the scripture, even they are bewildered by their inquiry to understand the plans of Krishna. So the point here is that, having told that prarabdha karmas cannot be the cause of the Pandavas' suffering, and having told that even the time is not the cause of the Pandavas' suffering, and finally it's Bhishma Dev is coming to the point that it is all the plan of Krishna. And then he says that, but nobody can understand the plan of Krishna. Nobody knows the plan of Krishna, what to speak of interfering with the plans of Krishna. And no one, even Brahma and Shiva, know the plan of Krishna. And even if a person inquires about the plans of Krishna, but still one cannot know. So in fact, this particular verse is such an important verse. Nakhyasya Karikichit Rajan Puman Veda Viditsitam Yad Vijigyasaya Yukta Mukhyanti Kavayopihi. This verse is quoted in so many purports. I'll just go through some of the sections in the Bhagavatam where this verse is quoted. In the 5th canto, when Brahmaji comes to meet Priyavrat Maharaj, Priyavrat was reluctant to become the king. That time Brahmaji gives instruction to Priyavrata. There he says that Niboda Tatedam Ritam Bravimi Masu Yutum Devamarhas Aprameyam. He says that please understand that it is the Supreme Lord who desires that you become the king. And don't be angry with the Supreme Lord, thinking that why the Lord wants me to become the king, why the Lord wants me to get entangled in all these materialistic affairs. Do not hate the Supreme Lord. That Lord is actually putting you in this condition. In fact, Arhasi Aprameyam, that the Lord is beyond the estimation. You cannot understand the plan of the Supreme Lord because the Lord is beyond estimation. Masu Yutum and Aprameya. Do not hate the Supreme Lord because he is putting you here in the position of a king. And do not try to understand the plan of the Lord because Lord cannot be estimated. And in that connection, this verse is quoted. How the Lord cannot be estimated. And then, another verse in the Bhagavatam, when Yamaraj speaks to the Yamadutas, the 6th canto, 3rd chapter, the Yamadutas, they went to Yamaraj, they asked the question, is there somebody above than you? Today we have been stopped by some strange personalities when we were bringing a sinful person to the hell. Is there anybody above than you? At that time, Yamaraj actually speaks about, actually I work under the Supreme Lord, and then he speaks about the nature of the Supreme Lord and the process of bhakti. So there Yamaraj says that, I myself, Yamaraj, Indra, Nirti, Varuna, Chandra, Agni, Lord Shiva, Vayu, and then he gives a list of people, and the other sages who are engaged in maintaining the affairs of the universe, as well as the best of the Devatas headed by Brihaspati, and the great sages headed by Bhrigu, all of us are certainly freed from the influence of passion. All of us are certainly freed from the influence of ignorance. And although all of us are situated in the mode of goodness, but we cannot understand the activities of the Supreme Lord. Yasya ihitam na vidu sprishta maya. We cannot understand the activities of the Supreme Lord. So in that purport, because we cannot understand the plans of the Supreme Lord, that verse comes. Therefore, Prabhupada quotes, Nahyasya Karihichit Rajan Puman Vidasitam. Another place in the 3rd canto, when Uddhava is remembering Krishna, to Krishna's pastimes, Uddhava says that like Krishna appeared in the house of Kamsa, and then in the midst of so many miseries, and then he went to Vrindavan out of fear of the enemies, and then he left Mathura out of fear of the enemies. He made the Dwarka fort. Although he had infinite power, but he still actually he flew out of fear. When I remember these pastimes, all these pastimes used to give me great suffering. Like why Krishna acted like that? He's unborn, but why is born? Why he takes birth? He's actually fear personified is fearful of him, but why he acted as if like he's fearful of somebody? Then in that connection, it's explained that Nahyasya Karihi Rajan Puman Veda Vidasitam. Nobody can understand the plan of Krishna, why Krishna acts like that. And the same verse is quoted. And another place where this verse is quoted, so you can just imagine the importance of this verse. Another place where it is quoted is that in the Swayambhu Manu's instruction to Dhruva Maharaj. Avyaktasya aprameyasya nana shakti udayasya cha navai chikirshitam tata ko vedata swasambhavam. When Dhruva Maharaj was overcome with anger and he started to overcome when he got carried away by the anger, when he was killing so many yakshas, at that time Swayambhu Manu advises Dhruva, and then Swayambhu Manu in one of his instructions he says that nobody knows the plan of the Lord who is invisible and unfathomable, from whom numerous energies arise and from whom you are born. So in that verse also this Bhishma this one is quoted. And then there is also the conversation between Dharma and Parishit Maharaj. And Dharma was actually standing on one leg. The bull, who the personification of Dharma, was standing on one leg. And Parishit Maharaj, he wanted to punish the Kali. But before punishing Kali, he asked Dharma just to actually get the evidence, who is the cause of your suffering. Yeah. At that time, Dharma gave a profound reply. Dharma said that, some people say self is the cause of suffering, some people say planets are the cause of suffering, some is the cause. Like that, the Dharma said that, but consider the proper truth by your intelligence. The Dharma actually did not point out that this person is the cause of my suffering. He just simply said that different people say different things are the cause of suffering, and you understand by your intelligence what is the proper truth. So the Dharma actually did not point out. So in that purport also this verse is quoted, Nakiyasya Karihjit Rajan. Like that, in different verses it is quoted. Like even when Uddhava, when you are speaking to Krishna in the 3rd canto, 4th chapter, I think I quoted this yesterday or day before yesterday somewhere, that Uddhava says that although you are self-satisfied, but you appear to perform fruitive activities, although you are the controller of time factor, but you appear to be afraid of the enemies, although you are like that. So we'll go to the next verse, 17. So Prabhupada says in the 16th verse purport that since time immemorial, nobody including Brahma and Shiva could ascertain the plan of the Lord. Even the exhaustive philosophical inquiries of the sages cannot ascertain the plan of the Lord. The best policy is to simply abide by the orders of the Lord without argument. And what was the plan of Krishna here? That Yudhishthira should become the king and establish the Dharma Rajya. Yudhishthira should establish the Dharma Rajya. So therefore, Bhishma is saying that just abide by this plan of Krishna. Instead of trying to understand why Krishna desired like that, just abide by the plan of the Lord. So even a great fighter like Bhishma could not win the battle of Kurukshetra because the Lord wanted to show that adharma cannot conquer dharma regardless of who tries to execute it. point I mentioned, that how the laws of bhakti and the laws of dharma both act simultaneously, and Prabhupada is mentioning the same point here. Even a great fighter like Bhishma could not win the battle of Kurukshetra because the Lord wanted to show that adharma cannot actually conquer dharma, regardless of who tries to execute it. So therefore, Bhishma Dev's point here is that when he is speaking this verse, just understand that the plan of Krishna is that you should become the king. Because the whole discussion is finally like, what is the driving point? Because Yudhishthira is reluctant to become the king. And Krishna wanted Bhishma to convince Yudhishthira that he should take up the responsibility. So we see that like the best person for a manager or for any position which involves control is a person who is reluctant. Because like somebody who is eager, that means he may actually misuse it also. The Yudhishthira Maharaj, he was a Kshatriya. Like few days back, going through gave us such a brilliant class on the gambling match. Like how Yudhishthira Maharaj, after losing the gambling match, how he transformed himself. Such a beautiful point. So many incidents we quoted from Mahabharata. Generally, many times devotees have a question like we are supposed to be humble, but then sometimes we get, if we are humble, we get exploited by some colleagues or other people. When we deal with the others, with people cheat us. So how do we actually deal with the situation? So is it possible to be good at the same time be shrewd or smart, not get cheated? Because Prabhupada said that if you get cheated once, then that is that person's mistake. But if you get cheated for the second time, then that is your mistake. That means you are not learned from the first experience. So Yudhishthira was cheated once in the gambling match, first time. But after that, how he corrected himself, how he tried to be good, how he maintained the dharma, at the same time being smart, at the same time being shrewd. So he described from so many incidents from Mahabharata. So the point is, why I remembered this. Yeah, the 16th verse. I forgot why I remembered this actually. See, yeah, the point is that, like here, Prabhupada says that even a great fighter like Bhishma could not win the battle because the Lord wanted to show that vice cannot conquer virtue. So, yeah, the whole point of Bhishma Dev speaking to Yudhishthira is that, like, Yudhishthira should become the king. So, Yudhishthira Maharaj was a Kshatriya, and like he transformed himself and he became shrewd. He was smart, at the same time he always abided by dharma. But still, after the battle of Kurukshetra, he became reluctant to become the king. So therefore, like such people who are not like excited about the power, who have the capacity to handle the power, who have the disposition to handle the power, at the same time who are reluctant, they are the right candidates for actually occupying the particular position. Those people who have the disposition of a Kshatriya, who can occupy that position, at the same time who are reluctant to get that power. And that was the character of Yudhishthira Maharaj. He was a Kshatriya. He had that ability of a Kshatriya, and we can see in so many incidents after the gambling match was lost, how Yudhishthira Maharaj transformed himself. At the same time, Yudhishthira Maharaj is reluctant to become the king. Therefore, Krishna wanted Yudhishthira to become the king. So therefore, Bhishma Dev's point is that just abide by the plan of Krishna. So I'll take up one more verse and then I'll just take some questions. Tasmadidam daivatantram vyavasya bharatarshava tasyanu vihito nata nata pahi praja prabhu. O master, O controller, O Bharatarshaba. Therefore, Vyavasya means discern that the happiness and the suffering is dependent only on Krishna. Tasmadidam Daiva Tantram. Therefore, understand that whatever happened in your life and all this war which has taken place in your life, it is all according to the plan of Krishna. It is all dependent only on Krishna. Tasya anuvihito nata nata tasya anuvihito anata nata pahi praja prabhu. Therefore, follow the plan of Krishna and nata pahi anata praja prabhu. Anata refers to the helpless citizen. Now the citizens are without a master, without a leader. So pahi praja. Therefore, protect the citizens, because this is the plan of Krishna for you, that you must actually become the king. So vyavasaya, that means discern, understand that all this which has happened is actually dependent on the Lord, Daiva Tantram. But understand that the purpose of giving happiness and distress to the devotee, that is not easily understood. It's all desired by Krishna, but the exact purpose, why Krishna did like that, why it happened like that, that you may not be able to understand exactly. You may not be able to understand the details of the exact purpose of Krishna, but understand for sure that it is the plan of Krishna. So therefore, having discerned this, tasya anuvihita, follow Krishna and protect the citizens who are without a guide, anatha, to lead them towards Krishna. So therefore, Bhishma Dev's whole instruction here is that he is telling that surrender to the Krishna's will rather than trying to understand Krishna's will. Do not try to understand the Krishna's will, just surrender it to the Krishna's will. Like few years back, when Shyam Vallabh Prabhu died suddenly in the Govardhan Eco village, it was like a very sudden, shocking thing actually. Real sudden thing. Like on that day, like when the death happened in the night, on that day there was a elaborate meeting about, I think some Ayurveda, something was inaugurated, elaborate meeting about the expansion of Ayurveda, etc. So many things happened. Suddenly in the night, like he died. So His Holiness Radhanath Maharaj, like after that death, was such a shocking thing. And like he mentioned one point, he said that like wanting to understand the plan of Krishna is a desire to be Krishna, because we want to be omniscient. When you have a desire, oh, I have to understand every detail of what happened, why this happened, what when we have a desire to understand every detail, oh, why this plan is, what is the plan of Krishna, why it happened. That means we have a desire to be omniscient, and omniscience is the quality of Krishna. So he said, wanting to understand the plan of Krishna is a desire to be God, because we want to be omniscient. So therefore, Maharaj mentioned that instead of wanting to understand the plan of Krishna, because it was such a sudden shock, just have faith in Krishna's words that Name Bhakta Pranashyati, that Krishna's devotee will be protected. And have faith in Krishna's words and give the benefit of doubt to Krishna, and eventually you will become freed from the doubts. So therefore, that this is the driving point of Bhishma Dev. Just abide by the plan of Krishna, surrender to the will of Krishna, and take up the responsibility of being a king. In the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, in one place, Rupa Goswami quotes, that this verse is spoken by Narada Muni to Krishna. So Narada Muni comes to meet Krishna. Narada Muni comes to meet Krishna after seeing the Pandavas in the forest. And Narada says that though you, the Supreme Lord, have appeared as a friend of the Pandavas, still the Pandavas met with so many calamities, such as losing the kingdom, living in the forest, and acting as a servant in somebody else's house. Like Yudhishthira Maharaj, just imagine if you read the chapter on Rajasuya Yajna in the Mahabharata, like there are chapter after chapter which describes the amount of gift which Yudhishthira Maharaj received from so many kings. Such an opulence. But from that stage, Yudhishthira had to become an ordinary servant. He had to become a servant of King Virata during the Ajnatavas. Just imagine like from where to where they had to become. But Narada Muni says at the end, Parantu Vavrude Tvayi Dvigunam Eva Sakyamritam. Although so many reversals have happened, but their sweet relationship for you doubled in spite of this. But although so many reversals have happened, but their love for you has actually increased doubly, dvigunam. The sweet relationship for you are doubled in spite of this. This is in one sense the greatest miracle actually. Sometimes we hear the miracle stories. Oh, somebody got a cancer and then they did puja to Narasimhadev and they got rid of the cancer. Somebody started chanting Hare Krishna. He got a sense that to sell some stocks and then he was saved from so much of loss or like that. And sometimes we hear these miracle stories, but these miracle stories unnecessarily only creates some kind of excitement in the short run. But the real miracle story is that in the case of the Pandavas, so many sufferings were happening, but internally their faith in Krishna doubled. Their love for Krishna doubled, although going through so many difficulties. And Narada Muni is astonished by that. And he is telling that to Krishna. So therefore, that in this way, the Bhishma Dev is advising. We will continue more verses. If somebody has any one or two questions, I will quickly take because I have to take more verses because tomorrow is the last class. Abhay Charan Prabhu. Chatush Kumar were able to remain in children farm appear to overcome the effects of time. Sometimes a person may be given a special privilege, special power. They were able to remain in children farm appear to overcome the effects of time. They were given that special privilege. But still, they were not, they just remained as children. But even better privilege is to actually remain as a youth and never grow old. Youthful, this one is higher. But Chatush Kumar, they just chose to remain as a children. And they got a special power. Tribanga Gopal Prabhu, devotees have a conception that when one takes to the path of bhakti, Lord himself takes charge of his karma. The analogy generally used is that collective karma is stored by the Lord like the cloud space in the internet storage. Only that karma is released by the Lord, which is required to rectify, purify, and restore a jiva back to the Lord. Is this right understanding? Because this theory is contradicting the technique of karma you spoke in the class, that Krishna doesn't interfere with the material laws and impartially awards just punishment even for a devotee like Bhishma Dev. See, one of the bhaktis, the characteristic of bhakti is kleshagni. If bhakti gives relief from suffering, bhakti destroys the papa, bija, prarabdha karma, aprarabdha karma. It is not that they are untrue, they are also true. They are true. At the same time, what Prabhupada says there, that even if a personality like Bhishma De, if he sides with adharma, that adharma cannot win, that he will get a reaction for that. This will also act, and the laws of bhakti will also act. How can both act? That is the Achintya Shakti of the Lord. That is by the inconceivable, by the Achintya Shakti of the Lord, both will happen. So it is not that we are nullifying actually bhakti gives relief from suffering, kleshagni, that's also there. But the other thing is also there. Therefore, like one is the say theoretical knowledge from the Shastra, but we also have to see the practical reality of the devotees. In the case, like because Krishna gives suffering to a devotee in order to make him strong. In order to make him strong. Sometimes he may give a token of suffering. Sometimes he may give more suffering also, although a person may not have that much karma. Okay, essentially, what Krishna does is that whatever will help the devotee to intensify his bhakti, to intensify his prema, Krishna does that. Avanti Brahman said, Nayam Janome Sukadu Hetu. He said, mind is the only cause, is the cause of suffering. And Mahaprabhu said, Yei Manda, Yei Bala. So finally, which is the ultimate cause of suffering? Material world itself, karma, or state of mind. So that's why there are different causes of suffering. So we have to see from the point of view of the devotee undergoing the suffering. We have to see from the point of view of the other people who are interacting with the devotee, and we have to see from the point of view of the Lord. So there are different statements made by, like Avanti Brahmana, he was undergoing suffering and he is making that statement. But here Bhishma Dev is speaking to the Pandavas. Whatever suffering you are undergoing is that it is all according to the plan of Krishna. But if you ask the Pandavas personally, they would say that no, we are just ordinary conditioned souls. We suffered because of our karma. That is so, like many times the devotee would think. And Krishna is so merciful, he just gave a token of karma. Therefore, we have to see the reality from the point of view of a devotee, and we have to see the reality from the point of view of others who are interacting with the devotee. And like that, we have to learn to see from all different angles and how to actually learn from different things. So Avanti Brahmana, he took responsibility. He didn't, like, sometimes if you think that like the Bhagavatam was Tatenu Kampam Susamikshamano Bunjani Evatma Kritam Vipakam. So Bunjani Evatma Kritam Vipakam, that means like I deserve to go through the suffering. So that is the attitude from the devotee's point of view. In that way we can understand Avanti Brahman's statement. Best person to be made a leader is one who is reluctant, but someone can want to be a leader to serve, seeing that the missions of Guru and Krishna, someone has to take up, else selfish motives will take up such posts and cause harm to the mission of Guru and Krishna. See, best person who can become a leader, he should have the capability to become a leader. He should have capability to become leader, and also he is reluctant in the sense that like there are people who are like who want the position, who are greedy for the position, so that such people can misuse the position. There are people who understand the gravity of the responsibility, and they have the capacity, and they understand the gravity of the responsibility, and so therefore they are reluctant. They also they feel that, oh, I am unqualified. So such people, they actually deserve to become the leader. Yeah, at the same time, it is not that becoming a devotee means, it is not that one cannot become, one cannot be ambitious, or one cannot grow in the, say, whatever corporate ladder, etc. Yeah, devotee, depending on Krishna, it does not mean that you become lazy. Depending on Krishna, it's not that you become lazy. You acquire all the skill. And for example, I think you mentioned that when Krishna, Arjuna and Duryodhan came to meet Krishna, so Krishna asked Arjuna first, do you want me or the Narayana Sena? And then Arjuna said, I want you, I don't want the Narayana Sena. Duryodhan was so happy that Arjuna chose Krishna, because Krishna took a vow not to fight the battle. And later Krishna asked Arjuna, why did you choose me instead of the Narayana Sena? Narayana Sena could have been so beneficial to you. And then Arjuna said, oh, Narayana Sena, I don't need the Narayana Sena. I have my weapons. I have gained so many weapons. I can take care of the army. I have the power. What I need is, I need your guidance and I need your relationship. That is what is most important to me. So as a devotee means, it does not mean that he become depending on Krishna, does not mean that a person does not have the confidence in himself, that does not actually work hard to gain some skills. Yeah, devotee can have the ambition, but one thing which I would say is that, suppose if a person wants to be a leader, suppose a person wants to enter in the political realm, wants to say, suppose a national leader or something, there is nothing wrong in that. One can definitely pursue that. But if a person says that, no, I don't want anything less than the position of a chief minister, then that is something wrong. No, if a person thinks that, no, I want to enter in the political field, I want to be in the leadership position, I want to, in the leadership position, I want to help the people. Yeah, you can acquire the skills, you work in the direction, etc. But especially if a person becomes very much adamant about only about a particular position, nothing less than that, then that is a wrong thing. Because if you think, oh, nothing less than chief minister or nothing less than the temple president, oh, I don't want any position below than that, and that is something wrong. But you can contribute by becoming a village leader, by being a, say, a municipal leader. One can contribute by becoming a some HOD or something like that. So therefore, one has to be, that is a line one has to draw. Like that is one of the difference between the, we can say, the Pandavas and the Kauravas. The Dhritarashtra and Duryodhan, like they especially wanted to be the king. They didn't want anything below that. They were anything. They didn't want anything below the king. Like they could have actually grown in their life by improving their skills, and they could have contributed. But they were especially focused on the position of the king. But on the other hand, the Pandavas, when they went to the forest, they lost the gambling match. When they went to the forest, Pandavas were never particular about the particular position. In fact, that is why the Pandavas said that just give only 5 villages. Even if we get 5 villages, it is sufficient. So they were not particularly position centric. Rather, they worked on growing in their life. They learned from meeting so many sages and acquiring different weapons. So growing is our responsibility. We can grow in our life, that's our responsibility. But when we become particularly ambitious about a particular position, nothing below than that, then that is something wrong. So like that. So I think I'll go ahead. Otherwise, we have other important verses to cover. 18th verse. So 17th verse, Prabhupada says that a devotee's duty is to ungrudgingly accept the tribulations from the Lord as a benediction. Pandavas were advised by Bhishma Dev to accept the responsibility of administration because the poor subjects were without protection due to the battle and were awaiting the assumption of power by Yudhishthir. So you can imagine when the kingdom without the citizens without the king, it's a very dangerous thing. Even the Maharashtra government was hanging without a chief minister, it was just dragging for a few months. So therefore, Bhishma is saying that become the king. And the next verse, Yeshavai Bhagavan Sakshat Adyo Narayana Puman Mohayan Mayaya Lokam Gudas Charati Vrishnishu. Lord Krishna, the original Narayan, Adyo Narayana. This Lord Krishna, the original Narayan, who bewilders the world, Mohayan Mayaya Lokam, who bewilders the world with his energy, he secretly moves in the Yadava family. Gudas Charati Vrishnishu. Why Bhishma is speaking this verse? That why is speaking this verse is that because in the previous verse, Bhishma told that do not try to understand the plan of the Lord, just abide by the plan of the Lord. So then Yudhishthira is asking, how can you say that it is all dependent on the Lord and that no one knows the plan of the Lord? Because at this moment, the Lord is there right in front of you. Lord is there right in front of us. Why can't we just directly ask Krishna, and what is your plan? How can you not know his plan when you can directly ask Krishna, please tell me what was your plan in giving so many sufferings to the Pandavas? So expecting that Yudhishthira will have this thought, Bhishma is speaking this verse. So Bhishma seeks this verse, Krishna is such a person, he bewilders us with his energy. Suppose even if I ask Krishna, oh, what was your plan in giving so many sufferings to the Pandavas? What will Krishna will simply evade our questions by answering, am I so intelligent? Why are you asking me such question? So, or even if Krishna says something, he will still bewilder everyone. Even if he says something, he will still bewilder everyone. Therefore, his plan is to be followed, but it's not subject to inquiry. So that means actually, if you see the crux of this verse is that what Bhishma is trying to say is that just trust the plan of Krishna. Develop that trust Krishna and follow his plan. And that is what Prabhupada says in, I think, 9.3 Bhagavad Gita purport. Faith means what? Unflinching trust in something sublime. Unflinching trust in something sublime. So actually, if we see that, so many times we think in terms of I want to understand, and then of course it's not that we also have to, many times in our this one we need to make inquiries, we should not blindly follow it, because when we are dealing, one is the philosophical reality is something many times in our day-to-day functioning, say suppose in a temple or different things, some decisions are made. So sometimes we need to inquire, we need to clarify, following the proper etiquette, we have the right to inquire, etc. But also there are certain times, like here Krishna himself is there, the Supreme Lord is there. No, if you say, no, I want to understand your plan. So instead of understanding the plan, just follow the plan of Krishna. That give that benefit of doubt to Krishna. That means trust in Krishna. So when we give the benefit of doubt to Krishna, Krishna gives us the benefit of freedom from the doubts. And Prithu Maharaj, in one sense, in his prayers to Krishna, the last prayer, what he said was that, because Lord told Prithu Maharaj, I want to give you some benediction. Ask, what do you want? And then Prithu Maharaj started offering prayers, but he concluded the prayers by saying that, you decide what is good for me, and then you actually give me that. You don't even have to consult me. You don't even have to ask me that after choosing something, okay, I have chosen this as a good for you, and is it all right with you? Is it agreeable to you? You don't even ask my opinion, because I have complete trust in you. Just like a father knows what is best for the child, you know what is best for me. So in that purport, Vishnu Chakravarti says that this shows Prithu's trust in the Lord. The similar point Bhishma is saying here, that just try to actually follow the plan of Krishna. Even if you ask Krishna, what was your plan in doing all these things? Krishna will bewilder us by his saying something. So therefore, he's saying that his plan is to be followed, but it's not subject to inquiry. But generally, one of the difficulty with the intelligent people is that they find it difficult to especially execute something when it is when it is contradicting the intelligence. So, of course, as I mentioned, that in our day-to-day interactions with the different authorities, decisions, we need to clarify. Like yesterday, we were having a discussion in the temple. They said, no, nobody can go outside the temple. But then I mentioned the lockdown 4 rules, which is issued by the government. It is mentioned that between 7 p.m. and 7 a.m., nobody is allowed to go in the red zone, green zone, and the orange zone. That means what? Between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., one can go. That's what the clear government directive mentioned. Like, somebody can go for say morning walk or something like that, or evening walk. So like that, yeah, we can, because we are working with people. It's not that they are also sadhaka bhaktas. They also have their shortcomings. So we need to clarify following the Vaishnava etiquette. But especially when we are dealing with some authorities who are like Krishna, or sometimes very high elevated devotees, spiritual master, or very high elevated devotees. Sometimes we may not be able to understand everything with our intelligence. We may have to abide by the plan of the Lord. So therefore here. So now in the next verse, so Prabhupada in the purport, in the 18th verse purport, he gives so many quotations how Krishna is the original Narayana. Especially comments on the word Adyo Narayana. For that he gives so many quotations. Shankaracharya accepted how Narayana is beyond the material creation. And then he quotes Brahmaji's prayer, Narayanastvam Nahi Sarva Dehinam. And then he quotes so many Vedic authorities, and then he says that accept the Vedic authority, and accepting the Vedic authority is not dogmatic. And people accept scientists as authorities and reject the Vedas. And even if they accept the Vedas, they misinterpret according to this thing, according to their motivation. So, yeah, next verse. Asyanubhavam Bhagavan Veda Guhyatamam Shivah Devarshir Narada Sakshat Bhagavan Kapilo Nrupa. Lord Shiva, Narada Muni, Devarshi Narada Muni, Lord Shiva, and Lord Kapila, they know the most secret anubhavas of Krishna, but they don't know his intentions. And this is a translation given by Vishnu Chakravarti. I'll first explain according to this. So, Asya Anubhavam Bhagavan Veda Guhyatamam Shivaha. So, even like Lord Shiva, Narada Muni, and Kapila, they understand the anubhavas of Krishna, the most secret anubhavas of Krishna, but they don't understand the intentions of Krishna. So what is the Anubhava? So Anubhava is a term which comes in the Rasa Shastra. So I will not go into the details of this, but when we read the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu second part, that Bhakti Rasa is a combination of 5 ingredients: Vibhava, Anubhava, Sattvika Bhava, Vyabhichari Bhava, and Sthayi Bhava. So Anubhava is one of the ingredient of the Bhakti Rasa. Like there are different types of Anubhavas. Like a devotee, sometimes he may get stunned or he may start perspiring, hair standing on end. I think there are 7 types of Anubhavas mentioned in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. So, yeah, like devotees, they understand all these nuances of the different types of Anubhavas of Krishna. How Krishna exhibits different Anubhavas in different pastimes. But even though they may understand the like Krishna became fearful by seeing Mother Yashoda's stick. And that is an Anubhava of Krishna. Krishna becoming fearful, Krishna crying. Krishna comes under the control of the devotee and exhibits different feelings in relation to the devotee. All these are different Anubhavas of Krishna. So, like Lord Shiva, Narada Muni, and Kapila, they understand all these Anubhavas of Krishna. But still, they may not understand the intentions of Krishna. So, therefore, Vishwanath Chakravarti concludes by saying that Krishna is the cause of the difficulties for the devotees. Like in the case of the pure devotees who have no karma, but still when they go through suffering in their life, it is directly given by Krishna. Because why Krishna gives? Because Krishna wants to increase their devotion to the higher level. Because there is no limit as how much the love for Krishna can increase. There is no limit as how much one can advance, and there is no limit as for how much a person become fallen. Both sides there is no limit. So sometimes Krishna gives difficulties in the life of the devotees in order to increase their devotion to the higher level, and in order to show the glory of the devotees to the whole world. How the devotees respond in their actually difficult situations. So that is why we find this verse, Yasyaham anugruhnami harishye tadanam shanai tatodanam tyantyasya swajana dukkha dukkhitam. But it is not that Krishna, in order to increase the love of the devotees, it is not that he has only one mean of giving the difficulties. Sometimes he may adopt the means of giving the difficulties and increasing the love of the devotees. Sometimes he may increase the love of the devotees not by giving difficulties, but by giving opulence also. Like in the case of Bali Maharaj, he took away everything, and in that way he actually revealed the glory of Bali Maharaj to the whole world. He increased his love towards him. And in the case of Sudama, by giving wealth, he increased the love of Sudama towards him. So it is not that you can actually predict, oh, Krishna will act only in this way. Therefore, it is not that Krishna will only give difficulties to increase the love of the devotees. No, this is not an inclusive rule. Sometimes the Lord increases the devotees' bhakti without giving problems to him. Therefore, it is said that nobody knows the plan of Krishna. The Shiva and Narada and Anubhava, and Shiva and Narada and Kapila, they may know the Anubhavas of Krishna, that they may not know the plans of Krishna. And there are other foolish people, they do not know they do not know even the Anubhavas of Krishna, that like Krishna allowing himself to be tied up by Mother Yashoda. Like there are other foolish people, at least in the case of devotees like Narada, Shiva, etc., they know the Anubhavas of Krishna, they may not understand the plans of Krishna. But there are other materialistic people, they don't understand even the anubhavas of Krishna. And when they see that when Krishna is tied up by Mother Yashoda, they think that this is just a small child's play. And they take it as some sort of a fake display. The 20th verse. Yam manyase matule yam priyam mitram suhruttamam akaro sachivam dutam sauhrudad atasaratim. So Bhishma says that you are thinking of Krishna as your cousin, as a dear friend, as a selfless helper, and out of affection, you made Krishna as your counselor, messenger, and charioteer. So Krishna played so many roles in relation to you. So in this particular verse, Bhishma is reminding Yudhishthir that how Krishna performed so many actions, took up so many roles towards you out of deep love for you. Although Krishna is the Supreme Lord, he displays actions indicating that he is under your control by being your counselor and messenger. So Bhishma is continuing the same theme, that no one knows the actions of Krishna whom you consider your cousin and friend. So you are considering Krishna to be your cousin and friend, but nobody knows the plans of Krishna. Krishna played so many different roles in relation to you. The same point is also mentioned by Narada Muni to Yudhishthira Maharaj. After Yudhishthira Maharaj heard the whole pastime of the character of Prahlad Maharaj, Yudhishthira Maharaj was feeling that, oh, Prahlad is so great. We are not so great. Prahlad got the such mercy of Krishna. We are so fallen, like that he was thinking. So Narada Muni understood the mood of Yudhishthira, and then he actually tells Yudhishthira, Yuyam Driloke Batta Bhuri Bhaga Lokam Punana Munayobi Yanti Yesham Grihan Avasatiti Sakshat Gudam Param Brahma Manushya Lingam. He said that you are the most fortunate people in the world, because those sages who purify the planets, they come to your palace in order to become purified. Because in your palace, Krishna personally resides in a human form. And then Narada Muni speaks that Krishna, who is the source of Brahman and Paramatma, who is sought by the yogis, he resides in your house as the object of affection, as a friend, cousin, as a messenger, as a guru, etc. So we see sometimes we forget the fortune which we have. Like Pandavas, of course, it was the transcendental emotion and the transcendental humility of Yudhishthira Maharaj, but Narada Muni is reminding, you Pandavas are the most fortunate people. So many times in our life also, as sadhakas or something, sometimes we may become depressed or we may become morose about certain things. But that time we have to count our blessings. We may fail to actually understand what were the so many other good things which are happening in our life. So that time, many times it requires somebody else to point out. So why are you so morose? There are so many other benedictions which Krishna has given. Although so many problems are happening in your life, but still you have an opportunity to chant the holy names. You have an opportunity to say read Bhagavatam. You have an opportunity to do this. That when Narada Muni reminded. So here Bhishma Dev is also reminding that Krishna has plays all these roles in relation to you. And then he says, Sarvatmana Samadrishu Yadvasya Anahankrite Tatkritam Mati Vaishamyam Niravadyasya Nakvachit. Sarvatmana samadrishu, that means advayasya anahankrite. Tatkritam mati vaishamyam niravadyasya na kvachit. Niravadyasya. Niravadyasya means his actions are not a mistake of his judgment. So avadya means mistake, like tasmad bhavantam anavadyam anantaparam. Uddhava glorifies Krishna as faultless. Anavadya means faultless. Here the word niravadya comes. That means Krishna's actions are not a mistake of his judgment. So somebody may say that when Krishna becomes a messenger or a charioteer, or when Krishna becomes controlled by bhakti, it is a degradation of his position. It is a degradation of his position, becoming a chariot driver, etc. If Krishna is like that, then how can the Lord's prema give him real happiness? So one may say that there is a degradation of Krishna's position that Krishna accepts such roles. So therefore, like Bhishma is clarified by saying that whatever actions which Krishna performs, they are not a mistake of his judgment. Niravadyasya. Because Krishna is actually faultless. He is faultless. And he is the soul of all beings, Sarvatmana. And Samadrisha, he sees everyone equally. And Advayasya, he is without a second. And Anahankrite, he is without pride. He is without pride. So therefore, so Prabhupada writes here that Krishna is the chariot driver of everyone. He is the Paramatma and the super soul present in everyone and the supreme guidance. And he is already the chariot driver and the counsel of all living beings. When he therefore exhibits himself as chariot driver of Arjuna, there is no change in his exalted position. So Krishna is there as a Paramatma, as a guide for all living entities. And then when he, anyway, he is the guide of all living entities. So therefore, when he accepts the role of a chariot driver and guides Arjuna, that means there is no change in his position. So Krishna does not feel therefore inferior by becoming a chariot driver of his pure devotee. Rather, it is the glory of the pure devotee that only he can bring about service from the affectionate Lord. So, like, Vishnu Chakravartipad writes in the purport, the Lord is actually bliss personified, is full of all powers. And when he takes up an inferior position like a messenger, chariot driver, he experiences no suffering because all these actions were performed out of prema for the devotees. In fact, even a person who does not have the powers like the Supreme Lord, and when a person who is filled with prema does not consider his suffering caused by the sinful acts that he alone has performed to be suffering. Like for example, like if a mother or a father, they're not a Supreme Lord, but when they go through certain suffering out of love for the child, and the mother does not consider that suffering to be a suffering, because the mother undergoes the trouble, the suffering out of love for the child. So even the ordinary living entity who is not supremely powerful, when out of love for some dependent, when he accepts certain suffering, like he does not consider that to be a suffering. It is like the burden of pleasure. Then what to speak of the Supreme Lord, who is supremely powerful, who is actually bliss personified, when he takes up an inferior role in relation with the devotee, he can have no suffering in his life. Next verse. Tatapyekanta bhakteshu pashya bhupanu kampitam yanme sum tejadat sakshat Krishno darshanam agatah. And he says, just see his mercy to his dedicated devotees. Bhishma is telling to Yudhishthir, Pashya Bhupa Anukampitam, just see Krishna's mercy to his Ekanta Bhakta, dedicated devotees. Now, Bhishma is actually talking about Krishna's mercy towards him. He spoke to Pandavas that you are so fortunate that Krishna acted as a messenger, chariot driver, etc. in relation to you. But you see, even with me, Krishna has shown so much mercy that he has come before me directly when I am about to leave my body. So here, Ekanta Bhakteshu, dedicated devotee, Bhishma is not referring to himself. So, see, Krishna has shown his mercy. Krishna is showing his mercy to his dedicated devotee, that is me, because I am about to leave my body. I am his dedicated devotee. Therefore, Krishna is actually coming and showing his mercy to me. No, Ekanta Bhakta does not refer to Bhishma. What Bhishma referred to Ekanta Bhakta is Krishna. Bhishma is referring to the Pandavas as the Ekanta Bhakta. Because he is saying that because Krishna is merciful to you, Krishna is merciful to you, he has come in front of me. Because Krishna is merciful to you, Krishna is always with you, so therefore Krishna has come actually in front of me. Actually, I am not a qualified recipient of his mercy, but still see his mercy towards me, by which he has come near such a low person like me. I am not a qualified person, I am a low person, but still when I am about to die, he has come in front of me and he is actually he is giving his audience to me. And because why he is giving his audience to an undeserving person like me? Because I am related with you, Pandavas. Because in order to show mercy to you, that he has come to me. That means Bhishma is actually considering that because of Krishna's mercy to the Pandavas, so I have also got the opportunity to see the form of Krishna when I am about to leave my body. So we see that many times, sometimes, we may get, of course, this is Bhishma Dev's utter humility. But if we read in the Mahabharata, the verse is also quoted by Rupa Goswami, the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, and Rupa Goswami quotes talks about the 64 qualities of Krishna. 32nd quality is that how Krishna is compassionate. Like a person is considered to be compassionate when he is unable to bear others' distress. Then he is called compassionate, para dukkha dukhi. And then he gives the example how Krishna exhibited that compassion. Then Krishna, when Bhishma Dev prayed to Krishna, he gives two incidences, but I will mention the incident related to Krishna. So Krishna's compassion was exhibited when Bhishma was lying on the battlefield. So at that time, Bhishma Dev was very anxious to see Krishna, and Krishna appeared in front of Bhishma. And Rupa Goswami says that upon seeing the pitiable condition of Bhishma, Krishna began speaking with tears in his eyes. Not only Krishna was shedding tears, but Krishna also forgot himself in his compassion. Like Krishna forgot himself in his compassion. So therefore, the devotees, instead of offering obeisances to Krishna directly, they offer obeisances to Krishna's compassionate nature. And who is the personification of Krishna's compassionate nature? That is Srimati Radharani. So anyway, from Bhishma Dev's point of view, Bhishma Dev is thinking that I am a low person, I don't deserve Krishna's audience. But Krishna, in order to show mercy to you, Pandavas, Krishna has come along with you, And because of that, I also am getting the mercy of Krishna. I am getting the audience of Krishna. This is from Bhishma Dev's point of view. But Rupa Goswami is saying that actually Krishna was compassionate. In fact, Mahabharata describes that Krishna was in intense meditation. Then Arjuna asked that, whom are you meditating upon? Then Krishna said, actually, I am meditating upon my pure devotee Bhishma, who is on the battlefield, who is lying in the battlefield. So actually, Krishna was concerned about Bhishma, but Bhishma is thinking like that. But we can also take in our lesson once His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj mentioned that sometimes if a preacher is experiencing success in his preaching, it is not that like preacher should not think, oh, because I am an expert preacher, because I am an empowered preacher, therefore I am getting success. Rather, Maharaj mentioned it could be because Krishna is pleased with the offering made by the pujari, and Krishna may be empowering the preacher who is related with that pujari. Not because that preacher is something great, because that preacher is related with that pujari, and that pujari is worshipping Krishna with love and devotion, and being happy with that pujari, Krishna may also empower that preacher who is related with that pujari. In another place in Bhagavatam, Prabhupada mentions the point that Lord Vishnu blessed Prithu Maharaj that very soon you will get the association of the four Kumaras. But when the four Kumaras arrived, and then Prithu Maharaj actually received the four Kumaras, and the Sanat Kumara instructed Prithu Maharaj, and then Prithu Maharaj expresses his gratitude. In one purport, Prabhupada says that actually like it was the Prithu Maharaj's greatness that he got the association of the four Kumaras. But even the common citizens of Prithu Maharaj, because they were related with Prithu Maharaj, they also got the audience of the four Kumaras who ordinarily cannot be seen. So what was these common citizens of the Prithu Maharaj, because they were related with Prithu Maharaj, they also got the association of the Sanat Kumara. So many times when we are experiencing success in something, it may not be because of we are something great, because we will be related with some devotee who may be pleasing Krishna better. So that is the consciousness of Bhishma Dev here. It is not that I am a low person, but because of Krishna's mercy towards the Pandavas, therefore I am also getting the audience of Krishna. This is the in this way Krishna is merciful towards me because I am related to you. So in this particular purport, Prabhupada says that having unflinching faith in the Supreme Lord as one's protector, friend and master is a natural condition of eternal life. A living being is so made by the will of the Almighty that he is most happy when placing himself in a condition of absolute dependence. So then he says that Arjuna had the bodily relation with Krishna, and Bhishma Dev did not have that bodily relation with Krishna because Krishna was a cousin of Arjuna. Arjuna had that bodily relation with Krishna. So Bhishma Dev was thinking that I don't have that bodily relation with Krishna. So the cause of attraction was due to the intimate relation of the soul. Yet because the relation of the body is very pleasing and natural, the Lord is more pleased when he is addressed as Partha Sakhe, Yashoda Nandana, etc. So the best way to establish our relation in the transcendental sweetness is to approach him through his recognized devotees. So like that. So at this point, I will end the class. So tomorrow will be the last class. We have another 27 verses to cover. So tomorrow I will actually cover fast. Tomorrow we'll cover the Bhishma Dev's prayer, and also I also wanted to discuss about, let us see if there is a time we'll discuss Krishna's conversation with Bhishma from the Mahabharata Bhishma Parva. So does anybody have any questions, comments? Okay, I'll end the class today. So, yeah, tomorrow we'll discuss some of the important points. Let us see. Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Hare Krishna.